Welcome back, everybody, to this edition of Dale's Rails, where I'm doing a series of videos chronicling the construction of my town scene. Everything moved along so quickly this week, I was able to come up with a lot of content, unlike last week. Things have progressed at such a fast pace, and I have several videos I will be releasing this weekend. Even though I edited double the amount of content, I still had too much to release in one video. So I hope you can find something useful to use in your projects, whatever that may be. So feel free to use any of it if you find it helpful. Just follow that edge along the a piece of masonite there with the new angle, and just like that, it's going to be adjusted for this new angle. Everything came down this way over here, so it's going to affect this part of the road bed here. That's why I had to come up, and it's just readjusting this angle. You know, I just butted this corner tight and then just let this piece overlap onto there, that angle, and I just used the knife and this edge of this for my guide to cut this new angle. And now I'm back on my radius here, so everything will line up back where it needs to go. And so just like that, I was able to make the adjustment necessary to drop this down that far. And this side was the same way. Okay, I did the same thing over on this side. I just, set this in here to my new line and then angled this, butted it up to this corner, and then this part was hanging over, and I just simply took an X-Acto knife, again like I did over there, and just followed that edge and trimmed that off, and to set this new angle. And then I, like I said, you can take scissors and really finite do some trim. I mean, I got some stuff off here that's maybe I know where that went. Yeah, here it is. Looks like about like a hair. So that's what I like about this stuff. It's very easy to precision cut precisely fine hairs of pieces off of this. And I was able to straighten this radius out. It was a little bit long here. And it looked like this was at an angle, more of an angle. And so I trimmed a little off of here and was able to trim in this area. And so I saved this radius after all, made that look a lot better. I didn't realize it was that bad off, I guess, initially. But I was able to, make this radius work in here, work out a lot better. So, I'll be able to save this piece after all. And it just took some extra trimming, a little bit extra trimming off of this edge. You can see I trimmed off quite a bit. I mean, I just, did a little at a time and then kept readjusting. But you can see I've got some very fine pieces in there. So that's what I like about working with this stuff. It's very easy to cut where you need it. I mean, it's just some crazy stuff, to work with, really, when it comes to cutting it and fitting it. So, from the easy stuff I've ever tried to cut and fit. Messed around with this so long that I finally got this fascia on. Now I can't hardly wait to get started to do my terrain. And, I thought this was a good time since I've got everything vacuumed up and cleaned up to go ahead and put this in place. Plus, I've been anxious, and I've had this product here oh, close to, I'm sure I've had this more than a year. I bought this quite a long time ago. This is something I got at Hobby Lobby. It's $6.99 a bag. That's a 1 pound bag. And I haven't used it before, but you know, it's pretty simple to use. You just, you know, wet it with water and apply it. It says it takes, take up to 1 to 2 days. So that's a little bit different for me. You know, I'm used to using plaster Paris mixed in with my Homa soap. And this is going to be a little bit different experience for me. Of course, I don't have a clue what I'm doing here as far as the ratio. It tells me on the bag here, but you know me, I'm not going to pay attention to that. You know, this stuff is usually, for me, it's kind of self-explanatory. I've dealt with enough plaster Paris to know kind of what the right consistency is that I'm looking for. And it's going to be something that you don't want it to be wringing wet, but at the same time, you know, you got to have what I would call just all the fibers wetted down. You want to have a complete wet down, and it's going to be kind of a, you know, like this little bit of a, almost like a paste. And of course, I'm sure the more water you put in, the longer it's going to take to dry. But at the same time, if it's not moistened, you know, it's not going to set up correctly, and you're going to, you know, it's going to probably chunk out on you. So it's not something you want to have mixed in properly. But you can see what I've kind of mixed it up there to a consistency like that. I haven't a clue because I didn't measure anything. I know I have a Pyrex measuring cup there, but I didn't measure anything. And I read the instructions on this before I started, and I can't remember what it said, but you know, when I read that, I thought, well, you know, that's going to be hard to kind of gauge. So, you know, like I said, I've done enough plaster Paris before. I'm just going to mix it up to what I feel is the right consistency. And this stuff, it's just as simple as that to put in. And so I'm going to just go down through here. And this is something later on, you know, it's kind of nice that it doesn't have plaster Paris in it, because when I get it on my painted surface here, it's pretty easy just to wipe off. And I can already see working with it here, it's going to be something that is kind of a neat product to work with, because you can get some irregularities in the texture, especially along these edges. That's going to simulate more of a earthen terrain, you know, something that's not formed perfectly smooth. But it looks like, you know, you could smooth this out too pretty good. It's a good idea to have a damp sponge, you know, so you can just take and wipe this off real easy like that before it dries. You know, I'm sure it'll still come off after it dries. It's just not going to be as easy to do as it is right now. And you know, if you get some in places you don't want, like on the side of this, it's just real easy to take it off with a damp sponge. And I'm kind of really impressed with this. I'm liking it so far, working with it. Pulled on down in there. There we go. Like that. Guys, going pretty quick. You can make some pretty quick terrain with this, that's for sure. And then that's going to help take away that flat look. I probably need to go in here with some of that too. And then by the time I put that mat back over, it's just going to build this up a little bit more and give you some terrain rather than just flat. I know they consider us flat here in Kansas, but we're not that flat. Maybe some more. See how easy that is to just make a natural looking terrain area. Like I say, when that gets covered up, it's just going to look painted, and when it dries here, I'll paint it and then we'll take a look at it then. But it's just going to make this look just so much different. It's just going to transform it in through here. Okay, today I'm going to paint my concrete bases. And I use the paints I'm using. This is actually folk art chalk paint. And I like to use it for a base for my concrete. It just makes a good, this is a very, I'm not really sure what the name of this is. I can't really read the name of it, but it's a very, very light gray. It's just a very, very light gray. And then, I got my zinc from DecoArt and then my khaki from DecoArt. I may go back and get another lighter gray also after. I mean, this is just the base coat that I put on. So, this just gives you a good, surface. It kind of seals it. This is very porous foam, and I like to cover even the areas that aren't going to show, just because it's gives you like a sealer. You could probably just leave it. If you're happy with that color, you can probably just leave it. But you can see it kind of, if that's showing up very good, it's covering up the pores in there, so you're not going to have all those little pinholes in there. That's what's good about the chalk paint. It's kind of a thick paint. It's acrylic, so it's going to dry fast, and it doesn't hurt to, I always put water in these wells, so I'm going to have paint in these wells, but I'm also going to have a lot of water, and the water just, really thins this chalk paint down, just because it's pretty thick anyway. And then looks like the last time I really didn't get it closed that tight, so it's even thicker than normal. So just by putting a lot more water in it, it's going to let me fill those pores a lot easier, a lot quicker. Otherwise, I'm going to be here quite a while just trying to get this to cover. You can see just by adding a little bit more water in there just how much it helps with the paint flow. And these imperfections like this are going to not be seen, because this is going to get all covered up with the bridge. So it's not probably that necessary to really fill it in, because I'm going to be sponge painting this now. The nice thing about the sponge painting, it ain't quite as messy as far as flinging paint everywhere. And, just each person his own, but some people, like to do multiple layers of dry coat because they don't like trying to wet blend two colors simultaneously. But for me, I find it very effective. The trick is just not to, overdo it. you want both colors to kind of show, every color you're using to kind of show through. So if I just use a, kind of a stippling effect here with a little piece of a sponge, I'm just going to go over this base that I've just painted with the chalk paint, and just go over it with this sponge. And for me, the sponge is a way you can wet blend colors simultaneously, because it just picks up that randomness and gives you two colors at once. And if you want to, like, well, I'll experiment like on this. This isn't like this is going to show, but I'll experiment here to try to get the color, just because this part isn't going to show. And it's not that big a deal, even if it does show, because you can just go back over it. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of do my concrete blending here with my colors. And you can see how it's changing that. Like I say, you could leave it the original light gray chalk paint color. There'd be nothing wrong with that. But I just like to give it a little bit more texturing, weathering effect with, give it more of that aged concrete look. And that's easier to achieve with the, if you get this paint too heavy in one spot, there's no need to panic. Just keep, without going back in and get more, just keep working it around while it's still wet. And what you're doing is you're really, you're blending it in there, but you're also moving the paint around where you're not going to have, a concentration of paint in one color or in one spot. So this is just a good way to paint up the concrete, in my opinion, to have it look a little bit more like aged weather concrete. Just because, it does give you multiple color layers, and which really is more how you're going to find aged concrete in the real world. It didn't like it. I mean, most concrete is going to have this age effect unless they just poured it yesterday and it's set up. That's the only time it's really a very light uniform gray color. Otherwise, it tends to, as it ages, it tends to turn more khaki color, I find. If you go out and look at your concrete, when you first look at it, you think, well, that's gray, but then the more you stare at it, you realize, wow, there's a lot more tan in there than I realized. So there's the results, and you can see how you get, with me, simultaneously wet blending. I mean, if people suggest that you can't blend two colors at once, it's probably because they're not using a sponge. But you can even do it with a brush. It's just the sponge is going to give you more of that random look than trying to do, easier than trying to do this with, a brush. And the more you go over it, you can see how I've got more of a, simulated concrete look. Hopefully that shows up on camera pretty well. You guys can see, when I get done here, we can look at this with it in place. I guess I should have let that dry a little bit more. We'll get that off of there. I'm not too concerned about it right there, just because I still got, that's going to be covered up with the bridge anyway. So there's, I don't know if you can see the contrast between here. Wow, that was, set that on this wet, very wet, wasn't too cool. Hopefully that will show up on camera somewhat. If you can see the effects there, but this is the what I'd call the weather one. This is just the base coat. So there's nothing wrong. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with leaving it like that. That looks going to look more like fresh new concrete. This is just going to look a little bit more like aged concrete. Well, I decided to go ahead and do the banks. This stuff is something I haven't used before, and I like how easy it is to work, but this stuff I put down over here 2 days ago, and it's still not anywhere close to being dry yet. I'm kind of surprised. So it takes a really long time. So it might be something that you don't really want to get carried away with, doing the first coat real thick like what I did here. This is really probably too thick too, but it's just going to take a while to dry, and it'll, once it dries, it'll be fine. But it's kind of enjoyable to do for me anyway. I mean, I like doing stuff like this anyway, and just kind of messing around, trying different things out, not really knowing what you're doing. I like doing that kind of stuff, just doing stuff you don't really know what you're doing, and just learning. So for me, it's kind of fun. I'm trying to emulate some bank here, and the good thing about it, it takes a long time to dry, so you have a lot of time to really I can probably come back tonight and still have some work time on this. So I'm just trying to emulate some banks, not really know what I'm doing. I'm just winging it from the top of my head here. I don't really know what a bank looks like. I should probably go out, and it's one of those things you probably should go out and kind of look what it looks like in nature. That's usually your best bet, really, doing stuff like this. I'm trying to pull this out a little bit. All I'm trying to do is achieve a natural, almost like a stair step, gradual bank down to the water's edge here. I don't know, what do you guys think? I mean, it's white, but I'm just trying to, it's pretty easy to form what you want. It probably should be something, I'm going to guess, needs to probably set up a little bit, really, before you try to, it's just, when it's just laid down, it's just got so much moisture content to it, and I try to mix this so it's, that you get all, you want to get all the fibers coated, but there's probably a fine line of not enough water or too much water, but it's not something you want water to be running out of this, so you kind of have to be a little bit careful. But it's kind of fun to kind of play around with, really. One of the reasons I didn't really mind carving, the rock face over there. So I don't know, guys. I want to come back and continue to work some more in there, but I just thought I'd let you take a look and see what I'm doing here as I'm doing it. I'm trying to really extend this edge out a little bit more, so it's kind of reducing my river down a little bit, but that's fine. That's what I want. I want to be able to have a little bit more room. What I'm doing here is gaining just a little bit more room on my buildings, and it remains to be seen how that's going to look yet. So, but it's kind of fun trying to mess around with this a little bit. You know, you can do all kinds of things with it, and pretty easy to shape it. You know, it's a little bit like putty, you know, when you're trying to work it here. You know, I've got quite a bit. It's going to make it easy to, you know, I got to ramp this up, but I can already tell that's going to take a lot of this stuff. Well, there it is, guys. You know, that really didn't take long. You know, it goes quick. So, I don't know. It doesn't probably show up all that good. But, you know, it'll look a little bit different when, you know, I get it painted and when everything gets done around it. So, you know, it should be okay. It turned out okay for what I wanted, you know, so I think it's going to be fine. So, you know, if you need to, you know, build up some spots, fill in some spots, this is a good alternative. And the only thing is, you know, it takes a long time to dry. So, you know, I did this 2 days ago. It still feels wet. You can see this edge here, it's getting really white. That's dry, but this I can still I can still make an impression in that. So I don't know, it just takes a long time to dry if you put it down pretty thick.